Well, hello and welcome to episode number 399 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. In this week's show, we interview a listener of the show and a 747 freighter captain, John Jester. In the commercial news, we play with some aviation Lego, we take a look at a super jumbo hotel, and we also check out the Mile High Club. In the military, we take a look at the security situation from an airplane's perspective in Europe. French aircraft manufacturer Dassault lands another big order, and a local Japanese prefecture isn't too fond of the Osprey, and a Blackhawk helicopter flies with no one on board for the first time. So joining me this week across the frozen landscapes of the village of Bungay, it's Matt Smith.
Frozen? It's not that cold, is it?
It is. It's 1 degree Celsius outside, Matt. It's freezing.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
Literally. Well, it was this morning when I went to work. It was absolutely frozen solid.
Oh, I see. What the joys about the company that I work for is if you really can't face going outside, you can choose to work from home, which is exactly what I did this morning. So, I'll be honest with you. My nose hasn't been outside at all once today.
That's one option I don't have. Is to work from home.
No, it's been difficult to do deliveries from home, isn't it?
It would be, yes. But I must admit, I've probably done what you used to do, Matt, when you on your coach driving days, where you start the vehicle up and then sort of do your bits and pieces, and then by the time you get in the cab, it's lovely and warm.
Yeah, you see, the weird thing is on that one, that didn't work in the coach because they don't heat up. I mean, they don't even, one of the ones I used to drive, it didn't used to warm up until you got back from your lowest off school run, which was a bit pointless, really. But anyway, we're off topic slightly. Yes.
I know. Well, it's a bus.
Coats were very much the required garment for working in coaches.
But before we move on, it's safe to say we haven't had in the dreaded snow yet.
We don't get snow here anyway.
Oh, I know, we get snow.
Exactly.
And joining us again this week from across the hills, vales and dales of the UK in his stately mansion in Buckinghamshire, it's Neville Bounds.
Yes, here I am again. No flying this week, but a lot of driving though. But that heated steering wheel in the Focus ST is particularly good, although I can't imagine the drain on the battery. It happens with it, but no, it's very good this week. Lots of driving, and everybody is back. I was in London a couple of times this week, and it is chock-a-block.
Oh wow, really?
Trains, and it's just like we're back to February 2020. It seems so. Amazing.
Oh, sounds good, Neb. So no flying this week, then, Neb?
Not this week, no. Couple of weeks off, and then back to Edinburgh again the week after next, I think. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. And also back with us again this week, but not at home this week. It's our resident pilot of everything that flies, including the paper airplane. It's Armando.
I don't know what that means, Carlos, but yes, I'm also not working from home. I am in a private aircraft terminal in an undisclosed location in the southeast United States. Today is a fly day, so I'll be here as long as I can until my passengers show up, and then I have to jet off.
In the aircraft of choice, which is?
Today is Pilatus.
Okay. Sierra Tango?
Sierra Tango.
Excellent. Oh, I miss that aircraft. Anyway.
You've been in it once, and you got to playing with the controls once. It's like you're acting like the damn thing belongs to you.
That's all you need,
honestly.
Matt. That is all you need. You just need to sit in an aircraft once, and you feel like you should.
Okay. I mean, the owner may be a little less impressed by that, but
yeah, the owner was a little less impressed by the excitement that you left in the right seat of that airplane.
No, dear. Oh, that's unpleasant. Oh, yum.
Come on, it's my first time.
It's your seat from now on, Carlos.
Yeah,
my first time flying an aircraft that travels more than 90 knots.
Should have bought it at home. Yeah, absolutely. Oh well, I mean, you could have put some wheels on it, and turned it into your new office chair. Then, by the sound of it, yeah.
Do you know what? Just quickly, I looked online the other day for a model to add to the 4000 that I have here, next to me in the office here. I tried to find a model of a Pilatus, and I found them, but they're nearly as much as the one that Armando flies, and these are models. They're not cheap.
Yeah. Well, Pilatus, it's Swiss made, and nothing Swiss made is cheap. So even the models are made in Switzerland out of, I don't know, something.
I'll keep
Swiss
searching.
Chocolate.
Anyway, moving
guys,
on from food.
We've
got a guest. We've got a guest. Introduce our guest, Armando.
I would love to introduce our guest. So I've known this man for 30 years almost now. We met on November 4th, 1994. I remember that date. So if you guys can do the math. John Jester from Northern Virginia, that's where we met. We were in the Civil Air Patrol there together. We've both been in the Civil Air Patrol for just as many years. And he was a instructor, a flight instructor, a pilot, a mission pilot for the Civil Air Patrol. He went on to do the beginning of his professional career at a regional airline associated with United Airlines. I think you were Columbia based, right?
Oh, Chicago.
Chicago based. There you go. And then he moved on from there and is now a 747 captain at Acme Giant, which is what we're going to stick with today. And he's here to talk to us a little bit about the cargo industry we've been talking about for the last 18 months, 24 months, as they've boomed while everybody else kind of suffered. So I'm looking forward to that here in a few minutes, Carlos.
Yeah, welcome on to the show, John. Great to have you on board with us and in the chat room as well, which is always good and handy to have. And in note of the chat room, a big hello to everyone who has joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. We're going to have a quick delve through the list of people who have joined us in there this evening. And we've got Dirk S. Hello to you, Dirk. Nick Codling, Richard Adams, Jacob Darlington Brown. I dread to think what time it is where you are in the world. Pilot Logan Lynch, hello to you. Graham Haley as well is also in the chat room this evening. We've got Tony S in the chat room. Masha is also in the chat room, and Jenny. Uncle Micah is also joined us in the chat room this evening. Loads of the family members in there. Great to see everyone in the chat room this evening with us on the show. And Sturman as well. Hello to you, Sturman. Evening to you. And Tony S is actually in there as well. I just looked up the top of the list there. Tony S is in there as well. So welcome to you and welcome to everyone. Don't forget, if you are listening to this show as an audio podcast and you want to check out what we all look like on camera, which is something you all should do, check us out on YouTube. Find us on there, Plain Talking UK on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, which is right next door, to be notified when we are live and recording a new live show as we are at the moment. And join us in the chat room because it's good fun. It's damn good fun. So I suppose we just hand things over to Armando then to kick off our chat with our special guest.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. First of all, John, how are you?
Goed. Als ze zeggen goedemorgen, goedenavond, wat je wil, allemaal. So, ik kom uit de Nederlands vandaag.
Bless you. Sorry.
All right. Well, I'm a hoot too.
Gesundheit. Sorry.
I'm a hoot. You're a hoot. We're all a hoot here.
I'm guessing you're not based in the UK, John.
No. So yeah, I'm home. I'm home today, next to the Schiphol Airport, and base-wise, I'm actually based in Anchorage, so other side of the world.
Wow. Okay, so let's jump right into that. How does that work? You live in the Netherlands. You're based in Anchorage. What is that commute like?
It takes a couple minutes. It has the novelty that I can go either direction, and it takes about the same amount of time. My Acme Giant operates 2 flights a week through Schiphol and goes to Incheon, Korea, and then I can connect the flight back up to Anchorage. So I can go that direction if I choose, or I'll go westbound almost every time. I just have to jump seat, which is something the European carriers are like, what? Get myself over to the U.S., and then I can get a ticket purchased by my company to work the rest of the way. And if I don't work in Anchorage, if I'm, say, starting a trip in Miami or Dallas or Chicago, oftentimes I'm able to get a ticket cheap enough that they'll buy it for me from here, which is much nicer.
Oh, wow. When you're I guess traveling on your own company aircraft going that way around the world, what do you get a seat? Is there crew accommodations? Are there extra accommodations?
Yeah, so nice thing about the Queen is she's got a bubble, and the bubble is the cruise. And we keep 4 seats on the 400s, and they have 6 seats on our Dash 8s that are basically like the old business class seats that you would have seen in the 90s. And they recline pretty far. There are various styles of racking out in those seats. And then we also have 2 bunks. So from here to Incheon's a 3-man crew normally. So if you want, usually you can grab a bunk and pass out there. It's a nice way to get across the world.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a nice, comfortable way. If you're not on a commercial airliner, it's your own people. You probably just hang out in your bathrobes, right?
Oh, yeah. I can fly in my. We fly sometimes that way. It is not uncommon at Acme Giant to get up and cruise, and somebody jumps up to go get coffee, and they come back in sweats and a t-shirt. I know definitely when I'm someplace in the warm conditions, I get to the top of the stairs. That's my top of climb. I take the shirt off. It gets hung up for use at the other end, and I fly in a t-shirt. And once I get up in cruise, it's a t-shirt and hotel slippers.
Wow, that sounds.
It's much more comfortable.
Gotta admit, I'm a little jealous about that.
Yeah, actually, can I?
Yeah, it's a different lifestyle. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I've got so many questions. I can't not take advantage of the fact that because you and Armando have known each other for an alarming amount of time. And the first question I have to ask is, how did you two meet each other? How did your paths cross for the first time?
So I had joined Civil Air Patrol in 1992, and I made the mistake of telling them that I had been in Boy Scouts.
Okay.
And then they said, well, hey, we have this cadet program. Could you help out over there? And I said, sure. Okay. So I got over the cadet program and then ran it with a very nice guy there. And then he had a child of his own and new job. So all of a sudden I found myself in front of the cadets in charge of the cadet program, which was spectacular. And then I met Armando later on, as he joined as this very skinny Puerto Rican kid who had a really funny laugh, but he had a better sense of humor, and we just clicked. There was a really incredible group of cadets around that time frame, and Armando was definitely one of them that I still maintain contact with. And Armando he just wormed his way under your skin.
Yes, he does that to a lot of people, to be fair.
When you say it like that.
I shared it at his retirement when we had Jeff and stuff. We were all kind of screaming over the party going on, but he still remains the only cadet who I ever F-bombed when he told me he was enlisting into the Air Force. Because I was so mad at him for enlisting. I was just because I cared about him that much.
Yeah.
And if you ever seen the scenes from Full Metal Jacket with Arlie Ermey going off on somebody, that was kind of what I was doing. And a good mutual friend of ours, he was the leadership officer, and he had saw me drag Armando back into a back office and kind of trailed behind and listened to me just go off about him enlisting. And then, I basically laid an ultimatum for Armando to look me in the eyes and tell me he wasn't ready to go into the, college. And he said he wasn't. And I said, get out of my face. And he walked out. And Jean-Andre, our really dear friend, followed behind him, just go, he loves you. So
yeah,
he knew, I think, but yeah.
Even
the cadets that caused the forest fire did not get F-bombed. But Armando, he got it. So
it's like so many people that we interview here that, the Civil Air Patrol here in the U.S. is the equivalent of the Air Cadets over there in the U.K. and all the other countries that we have listeners in. And I mean, what John's not saying is I was a terrible student. I was almost failing out of school. So I didn't have a lot of options. And at the time I was actually working for Atlantic Coast Airlines as a ramp rat. And I saw that and I said, one day I'm going to be there. But for me, enlisting in the Air Force was a way to get out of Washington, D.C., where we were living, and kind of do a reset in life, which obviously turned out well, right? Because those 22 years went by so fast, and everyone that John is talking about showed up to my retirement, or I saw them shortly afterwards. Wow. You know, some of those, you know, Lee, one of my best friends and another protege of John, they came to the retirement ceremony 22 years later, but it felt like just a couple weeks, didn't it, John?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember at one point you said you were going off grid for your work, and I think I left it with "Don't Get Dead."
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, you know, he finds me on Facebook and goes, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like,
"Yes."
Hell yes. And
wow.
He's like, I'm coming back to the States. You know, I'm going to the Air Force Research Lab. And I'm like, holy cow. You know,
yeah.
So
wow.
Then I met up with him, and he was not that skinny Puerto Rican kid anymore. He was,
still Puerto Rican, just not that
like big buff special ops Puerto Rican.
So, I see. Yeah. All right. Now,
very impressive.
So, I mean, obviously, you've mentioned like the Civil Air Patrol. That was obviously something that was a big thing for you as well. But I noticed I'm looking at the list of other things that you've done, like flight instructor and Acme Giant, obviously, which you've already mentioned there, and Air Wisconsin. Sorry, that's my putting my teeth in. Try that again. I mean, that's quite the CV that you've amassed already.
So yeah, I mean, I guess I could give you the quick bullet on myself. So yeah, questions will probably pop up. When did I want to learn how to fly, or when I knew I wanted to fly? I was like 3. My parents said I've never talked about anything other than that. And back in the days in the 70s, there used to be the Sears and Roebuck catalog, and in the back of it there'd be like model airplanes that you could fly, and I was like, I want one of those. You know, they were like $600 in the 70s. So
wow.
You know, obviously that didn't happen, but you know, I kept through with that all the way. And then when I got out of college, I had my private pilot license. I had gotten between my junior and senior years of university, and then thought, well, I'll try to go in the military. I didn't work because it was the 90s and Clinton, and then I moved on and got a job right away working on the ramp for United Airlines, loading bags in Dulles Airport. That did for about 8 years, and finally I was like, okay, I got to commit to this. And I went out to Arizona, finished up the rest of my ratings out there at one of the puppy mills, and instructed, flew for Colgan, where Armando's father was the director of training, just to make things cross paths. My ground instructor was a squadron commander from the adjacent squadron, so I was in good stead there. So I flew a Saab 340 for a year and a half, and then I went on to Atlantic Coast, where Armando was, which turned into Independence Air. Pulled this shirt out of the historic pile, and flew the CRJ at Independence Air up in Chicago. It was Atlantic Coast at the time, and then got furloughed. And when I got furloughed, I just gotten engaged, so I thought employment would be important. So I went back as a ramp manager. So I was a ramp manager at O'Hare, switched down to Dulles again, was ramp manager there. Then I switched over to a crazy job in maintenance for doing maintenance quality assurance. So I did that for 2.5 years, learned a ton. Mechanics did not think the same as pilots, that was for sure. I learned that. And then moved on when Independence Air shut down, went to Air Wisconsin, flew there for 10 years. First 5 as an FO, second 5 as a captain. And I went to Acme Giant to escape the East Coast and its craziness of flying. And because my wife's a Nederlander, so being gone so much, it's much better for the family, for her to have some support from her family, and you know, schools and stuff are really good here. So now I commute from afar. and flight 747. And I also serve in both the last company and this company on the Union Safety Committee as a chief accident investigator. So done a couple of things.
Yep. And if you guys remember, we had a contribution from John when there was that mishap down in Houston a couple years ago now. So, yeah, I mean, it's like one of those careers that you hear about, and it's, I guess, kind of common, but everybody in aviation has their own journey. And I guess one of the things that I've discovered is that everybody's journey to where they are now is super interesting. Now we could probably just sit there, we came up with some questions here about and just talk about experiences at each one of those operators and how different they were, and what you learned and what you took away, and how does that flow into your next job. But so here you are flying Acme Giant, flying cargo around the world. Is that what you wanted to do? Did it fall into your lap and now you're happy with it? What do how did that fill into your life goals?
I'd say fell into my lap, and I'm happy with it in terms of cargo. The current ride is, if you'd ask 12-year-old John, what do you wanted to do? I am doing exactly that. Flying 747 is absolutely what I wanted to do from a very young age, because, it's cool. So that's definitely been the case. The path has been long and windy and not the way I expected or planned at all. But I've taken away incredible things from each one of those little career path sections there. Even from the ramp, that even still plays a factor in my daily job, because I understand what kind of problems they're having, and I shock them every once in a while by going, well, do this, and it will work, and it usually does. So, it's kind of funny how that it all does play together. In all the experiences you build up, knowing how things are supposed to be done, or knowing people are not doing it the right way, they're shortcutting.
Yeah, it is. I'll agree with that. After working the ramp, you were for United, I was for United Express at the same airport. You definitely learn a lot about what ground operations are supposed to look like, and you can identify what ground operations need some help when you pull into an airport somewhere, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I can remember somewhere in the first week I was turned loose to work on the line without a direct training. A guy had the lead, who was in charge of the gate, was a old United guy, and he had been there since DC-3s were a regular operation. And I had to jog to get something out of the way and get in position when the airplane was pulling in, and I got chewed out because I was jogging. And he was like, son, we don't run around here because someone's going to look for the fire behind you. And that registered hard, because you looked at our ramp and nobody ran. Everybody looked like they were in slow-mo, but we could turn a 747 in 45 minutes. We'd be usually waiting on the gas to be put on the airplane. But we could get offload and unload all the baggage, all the cargo, not running, not stressing, not talking, because we pulled up our own paperwork, and usually your lead would sit there and point to his nose or point to his butt, and you knew where to put the stuff. And that was it. Unloading and all that. You looked at where everything was on the plane. You got all your equipment set up before the plane showed up in order for it to come off the plane. So you literally, preparation was a big thing, and that's something I find brutally painful nowadays in my job, is that it looks like it's the first day every day nowadays. Every once in a while you find a place where it's working out, but
I'll tell you what, we have these questions that you and I kind of came up with, but the chat room's already asking some questions. Nick has two of them, which is, what is your favorite airport to fly into and why? And have you ever landed at Kai Tak?
Kai Tak, unfortunately, was gone and even removed from the simulator before I could get the opportunity to try to do that. Favorite airport is still probably Washington Reagan, doing the river visual. one growing up around DC, I'd watch the fireworks at the Pentagon or right by the monuments, and you watch the planes winding down there, and I was like, that looks so cool, and sit there at Gravelly Point and had the planes come right over your head. So when I was at Air Wisconsin, I was Reagan based, so I got to do that approach in all kinds of weather, and I flew that approach for free every single time. You did not pay me at all to ever fly that approach because I just loved it.
Yeah.
A beautiful approach too. I mean, the weather, especially in the spring when the cherry blossoms are out, I mean, you cannot beat it.
Yeah, I used to sit out there as a kid too, right underneath the approach path. So I want to go into the lifestyle of a cargo pilot. So obviously, cargo has been in the news through this COVID pandemic as having, been a part of the industry that has thrived while other parts of the industry have really suffered. What are your thoughts on that? Was the meteoric rise in cargo kind of destined? What did the pandemic do positively or negatively to do that? And, what are your thoughts on cargo and COVID?
Well, sure. I mean, cargo was already on the way up before COVID. E-commerce, this whole mentality of just in time, has definitely been a big driver in the cargo industry. We always were seeing, that kind of increase. FedEx, UPS, Acme Giant, all these companies were filling that demand. And you had Amazon developing their Prime Air and stuff, and that was all based on this just-in-time cargo moving basis there. And so it was on the way up. And then you tossed in COVID, and initially I think all of us saw our career dissipation lights blinking again, and then all of a sudden it extinguished, and the holy yes, get your butt in the seat light came on, and we were flying everywhere. I flew in that first 6 months probably twice as much as I had in the previous year. It was an insane amount of operations and flying really full airplanes, which drove incredible profits for the cargo companies, Acme Giant included. We saw, some of the highest revenue quarters in the last 3-4 quarters recently, all based on this incredible breakdown of the logistics streams, from shipping to trains to trucks. Now airplanes are short of staffed with all the hiring going back on in the passenger airlines. And, cargo was paying so much that the passenger airlines were flying empty airplanes. Mm-hmm. I commuted on paid tickets that were $200 straight off the street, not discounted tickets, $200, $300 between Amsterdam and JFK, essentially because they were moving the airplane with cargo. And I'd be like one of 6 people on the airplane.
Did those kinds of profits and revenues, industry-wide, not specific to your company, but did that translate over into increased pay or benefits or profit sharing or anything like that?
In profit sharing, we saw profit sharing. Other companies saw profit sharing. I think the passenger airlines, they all took a big gut blow, but the cargo airlines, we all took a great windfall. Kaleta came out with a new contract, jumped their pay up quite a bit. We just implemented a new contract, not through negotiation, but through award from a arbitrator. So we had a big battle with them, but pays definitely even jumped up for us, and they're offering, bonuses to not take your vacation, and bonuses for flying into China and all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot of money out there to be made in the cargo industry now. It's definitely changed its nature.
Yeah. And you brought up Kaleta. One of the questions that I had for today was, so we all know the big names, UPS and FedEx, and then there's sort of the lesser known ones, because sometimes they fly under other branded airlines. So you have like Atlas, Kaleta, Southern Airways. Are there major differences between those two? So this is kind of tailored towards somebody that may want to go into a cargo career. Is there major differences between those kind of UPS, FedExes, and the Kaletas of the world?
Yeah, that can be quite a bit of difference. The FedEx and UPS part, they operate as their regular scheduled runs for themselves. And the rest of us are operating under what's called ACMI, so aircraft crew insurance and maintenance, or CMI, where maybe an operator like Amazon owns their aircraft and then they contract out with a company to operate them on their behalf. And in that part of the world, yeah, the pay is a little bit less. You may work a little bit more in terms of days, but it's a little more scrappy. There are the Corrosion Corner Airlines of Miami, they call it, where there are a couple of jets that are operating on the sides, picking up stuff here and there, and they're pretty rough outfits to work for. In terms of you get stuck on the road for maybe 36 days in a row, which would I can't even imagine. Or you get the Colettas and the Atlases of the world that are a little bit more standard operating procedure, doing ones that you usually see doing military contracts as well are going to be a little more consistent. So Omni comes to mind, along with Coletta. Atlas does as well. Southern is no more; they got merged with Atlas. So
just an interesting question from Mark in the who sent a question in via the WhatsApp number there, and Carlos, I think you might sort of relate to this a little bit too. Is saying are cargo pilots treated like truck drivers of the skies and not necessarily given the same level of respect that their passenger flying counterparts are?
It depends on your country. Let's put that way. Probably most likely in America, maybe a little bit. It's more about how you carry yourself. You get the respect you demand, generally speaking.
Fair enough, yeah.
And I think it's much more given when I'm over in Asia or the Middle East. It's oh captain this, oh captain that, and in America, I tend to be calling somebody out, going, "Hey, there's no food on here. Nobody did the lav. Nobody's finished up the maintenance or whatever." It seems like it's more of a fight sometimes. But again, it's more respect is given and demanded in sort of equal parts oftentimes, and I think it's looked at pretty similar now, especially with the change in the industry.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that I had jotted down was there's a lot of slander towards cargo flying, and I had asked, what myth can you dispel about cargo flying? Did you actually think of one?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about it. Unfortunately, a lot of the slander has some truths. It just depends on, it's in corners of the industry versus the mainstream industry. And there definitely was always the attitude of cargo pilots are, they had DUIs or they've had trouble with the law or crashes. And that's generally not the case. I mean, I don't see that certainly not with my company. I have a lot of former military pilots that are coming in. A lot of regional pilots. I mean, my individual class I started with was 4 guys from my previous airline, 4 or 5 guys from another similar regional airline, a handful from some charter outfits, a handful from other ACMI companies, and then like 3 or 4 strays from Alaska bush flying. And we all got through. We all did really well. The people that chose to stay pretty much generally were the chose to stay ones. They were good people. One of my classmates flew 1900s and jumped to a 7.4, and everybody was like wondering if he was going to do well, but he's incredible. He's super smart, and everybody has a lot of respect for him, and he's sort of a favored person. And I think you'd say his name and everybody gets happy. We have some, we call them our 3-digit and 4-digit pilots that have been around since the beginning. They are, sort of like a grumpy walrus on the beach. You don't want to get around them.
Right.
It may or may not end well for you. But sometimes you just have to stand up to them and say, no, we're not doing this. That's stupid. And if you want to try and do this, we're going to get off the airplane.
And rest assured, when I was at doing some training down at Delta Airlines not too long ago, in their recruiting presentation, they actually said that their number one competition is FedEx. So some of these, almost all of these cargo carriers are actually Part 121 airlines, including smaller operators like Mountain Air Cargo. They operate as a feeder for FedEx, but they have caravans and ATRs, and their ATRs are on a Part 121 certificate, which is the same certificate as a major legacy airline such as Delta, American, or regional. And they have actually they've been known to have some of the strictest and the hardest hiring standards and interviews, like FedEx. I don't know if it's a myth or not, but people say that interviewing for FedEx is like interviewing for the astronaut program, where they're expecting you to, better than I do, right?
Yeah. So FedEx definitely has a reputation. They have these cognitive tests, and you can go through some preparation for it, and they are pretty tough. That's just the first day. And if you survive that, then you have to go through some panel interview, situational interview stuff, where it's like the Kobayashi Maru situation. Well, what do you do? You're between here and there, and this airport's got a aircraft that's stuck on a taxiway that's impinging on the runway, and this airport's got bad weather or whatever. You can barely land there. What do you do? And you're running out of gas. So their FedEx is pretty tough, but they're hiring a ton, and UPS is hiring a ton, and we're losing pilots left, right, and center to all those carriers like that. UPS, FedEx are major bloodsuckers off of our pilot group. You look at a class of new hires, and there's probably 3 or 4 from Acme there, but we're also losing them to the mainline majors and stuff, because we had, again, a lot of regional pilots come in, and they missed the flying with the passengers or with the flight attendants or whatever they want, or they just want to have a shorter commute, and so they're jumping over ship over there. Plus the pay is just gone insane. It's you can go
the pay and the bonuses at both regionals and majors is significantly changed over the past 12 months, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. It's not even the same.
Yeah, think back to your days at Colgan, right? By the way, I'd forgotten that my dad was the director of training at Colgan when you were there.
Yeah, I remember he came around and he goes, "Where's this John?" I'm like, hand up, and and he started letting into me, and then he goes, "I'm Armando's dad," and I was like, "Oh my God, really?" But I saw a few questions in the line there. So yes, I know Rick from the other show, and yes, I fly into Sydney a lot. Very beautiful place to fly into. Definitely enjoyable. Sometimes challenging with the winds, though. I lost some of the other questions. Too many of y'all in there. I don't know how you guys do this all the time.
Well, that's why there's 4 of us usually, and then producer John is feverishly typing in the background and talking into our ear.
Oh Lord,
he's not here today. But.
Yeah, nice and easy today. Yeah.
Look, actually, John, looking at the aircraft that you fly, the 747, you've got the Dash 400 and the Dash 8 in your fleet for the cargo outfit that you fly for. But obviously, I take it you fly both models of the 747, the Dash 8 and the Dash 400.
Correct. Yeah. They are.
How similar are they for flying?
Almost exactly identical. The Dash 8, and thank you for calling it a Dash 8, not a 800, because there is no 800. The Dash 8 has an electronic checklist, and it's got the big motors, which are the same motors as the 787. and it had some isms for a while when I first came here. Or we had to start each engine individually, but that was about the worst of it. Yeah, it was something to do with logic and electrical switching and blah blah blah. They fixed it, and its biggest difference that plane has from the 400 is that wing is really slick. So 400 will come in, we'll do a 3-to-1 glide slope in, and with a Dash 8 we'll do about a 4-to-1 glide slope. That's a much harder to slow down plane. You have to plan out your descents. I tend to artificially force the aircraft to start a descent earlier, so it's a shallower descent. So it's some of the energy management thing. And then the weights are just, it carries a lot more. We're larger, heavier, and all that translates into just sort of a little more thought process onto particularly landing it.
What's the training like going into a 7? I mean, we all imagine the 747 as the queen of the skies, right? What's the training like to go into an airplane like that?
I would like to say it was clean and organized. It was not terribly clean and organized. It was sort of like you showed up, they threw a pile of books in front of you and sort of gave you a schedule for the next week. And that changed about 5 times through the week. And then, you started reading and studying, and we did a lot of CBT, a lot of computer-based training. That was just like death by PowerPoint, trying to slam through. At certain points, I probably had my laptop and my iPad running simultaneously, and probably the laptop probably had 2 different browsers running, so I could run the program on both browsers, to just because a lot of it's just monotonous. You can only hear the pressure of the hydraulic system so many times before you want to shove a
given the choice, John, between a Dash 400 and a Dash 8, which is your personal favorite, or are they both as good as each other?
They're both pretty good. My preference is the 400 because if I could beat the Boeing engineers over the head over the design of the galley and the lav on the Dash 8, I would. Somebody at a freight company that happens to be near Luxembourg, we'll leave their name out of it, decided to put the galley sideways in, along the long axis. So all the doors open uphill towards the front of the airplane. The bathroom door opens backwards towards the back of the airplane. And then you're constantly fighting doors. And oh wait, then you have the sink in the galley that drains uphill. So just to say, this basically doesn't fully drain ever. And then all of the water in the whole system requires air pressure. And if you lose the galley water or the potable water, you lose everything. So if the system, like the pump, fails to work, then you have nothing to wash, no way to wash your hands, no way to flush the toilet, no way to make coffee, no way to make hot water, and your oven will still work, but in a different, sort of degraded mode.
I mean,
wait, you're still fighting the doors the whole time. And they put the dog houses with the food, they put one behind the other. So you're constantly, like, if you're trying to sleep in the back, all you hear like about every hour is
banging.
Ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Where's this? Ka-chunk, 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 slam, slam. And then maybe the oven start. And,
coupled with a bit of mild swearing. And
I'm going to try and put this as gently as I can, John, but with LAV, have you got to decide what you're going to do before you go in there?
No, we have a slightly larger LAV than the Max, because I've seen that, I've experienced that. That is an experience. But no, our LAV, it's mostly that the door opens aft. So when you're flying across the middle of the ocean where it is pitch black and you're trying to enjoy the colors of the Milky Way, because you can literally see the colors of the Milky Way, it's so dark. Then somebody goes to the bathroom and you're just blinded by all this light that comes into the flight deck because the curtains, not stopping the light, or you didn't have the curtain open or closed. And it's just like, why? Why did you do this? Why not open it the other direction? Why did you have to put it there in the first place where it's on the other side of the airplane on the 400? There's so much better on the 400 in that way.
Is it true what I've read online, John, that the standard of food quality that you guys get on cargo aircraft is far superior to that crews get on commercial airliners? Or is that just a myth?
Mostly myth, I would say. We get larger quantities. We have a phrase I can't fully use without revealing the official name of the company, but describes the body by name of airline, because we in our contract have requirements for at least 2 sandwiches per every 4 hours. So a lot of our flights are 12, so do math. And then anything over 4 hours is a hot meal. Anything over 8 hours is 2 hot meals, plus the drinks, and so you can open up a galley and you're just like, wow, that's a lot of food.
Genuinely, next time we're renegotiating the PT UK contracts, I think we should definitely have a food quota in there. I think that's a very important thing.
I'll give you a copy of that section of our contract.
Yes, please. That would be marvelous.
But John never has the fish.
No.
I actually don't have the fish, but
but not
that
for
is actually one of our popular meals out of Alaska, because
I can see that.
Yeah.
It is. Everybody says it's actually good. Like, people will fight over the fish on that flight. So,
hey guys, I know you're going to continue on the interview, but I've got to go ahead and take off, get the airplane ready. Yep. So quick flight home. John, thank you so much. I'm going to try to listen to this as soon as it's over on my drive home. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being a loyal listener to the show and a good friend of mine for so many years. But the guys are going to carry on this interview and I don't know, dispel all these myths about cargo pilots. I can't wait to
start talking about you now, Armando.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you're going. Yeah, now we're going to. We're going to get the real story now. Yeah, so we're going to get the real story.
Hopefully not. Matt already derailed the script. He went off script. He never goes off script.
I'm like that. Yeah, I know, but we can't. We can't have somebody who knows you that well and not take it as an opportunity to get some more stories out of you. Anyway, you need to go, mate. Thank you for joining us.
Take care, Armando.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Matt, think of yourself as a 14-year-old and what you would tell that person.
Oh, many things, indeed.
All right.
Take care,
guys.
Yeah, see you later. But while we're here, Dirk S is making an excellent suggestion that our new contract should have every 10 minutes is 1 beer, according to PT UK host standards. I think that's very important. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Nev, you've got a few questions for John?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, John, in terms of the crewing of aircraft with cargo ops, we hear a lot about the loadmaster very often on television documentaries and that kind of stuff. Is it the same person that does that job, or do you rotate that role if you've got 3 crew, for example? How does that work?
So loadmasters in the FAA world have become their own thing. They're a dedicated, I think there's maybe even certificated individual. That comes out of that National Airlines crash in Bagram, which was, that was such a horrific event. I literally have only watched that video once. I refuse to watch it. It's so we have different types of loadmasters. We have loadmasters that are sort of station based for our regular stations. So someplace like Anchorage, we have a handful or more of these loadmasters that work the flights as we come through. But then if we're going downrange, we'd say going down to maybe South America, or definitely when we went down to Africa, and definitely when we do the military flights, we carry 1 or 2 loadmasters sometimes. I had the opportunity to go into, I believe it was Kandahar, and pull out a fighter squadron out of there, which comes with just a crazy amount of crazy looking equipment to support them. And everything on the main deck was, heavy, awkward, and everything had to be strapped down. And, we're doing this in the middle of a sandstorm, and they just blown up a convoy the day before off the base. So, I learned a lot that day because I went down with one of the mechanics, the flight mechanic, and we helped the two loadmasters strap everything down. And those guys play a vital role for us. I mean, they're honestly the ones that keep us safe. We have a whole dedicated department just for special loads, because we carry weird stuff. I think my first flight down to Africa, we carried like 20 sections of drill pipe. No other plane in the world can do that because it has to go through the front end because they're like 80 feet long. I've carried an IMAX screen down to South America. Like,
wow.
Yeah, it was most of the airplane. It was just this one IMAX screen in the middle, all strapped down a million different ways. And we really depend on those loadmasters to do it. They do all our weight and balance for us. They optimize the load as best they can. Sometimes they unoptimize the load. The other day, I had them unoptimize it because it was icy, and I wanted weight on the nose. See the Air China baggage can attack video. So I said, hey, load this thing up. I would rather be really nose heavy. I'll take extra gas. But oftentimes we run really on the backside of the weight and balance curve just to stay fuel efficient. Because the more ASCG we can remain throughout the flight, the better we are on fuel burn. It gives us a better range, more time on station if we need to hold when we get to the far end.
Yeah, I mean, CG is absolutely critical, isn't it, in your operation, I would imagine. How much leeway do you have in a typical flight, for example?
There's quite a bit of leeway. Oftentimes what limits us is size of the cargo per position, because the floor has varying weight capacities or weight limits based on where it is and how far it is outside of the center datum point on the aircraft. And the heavier stuff oftentimes has to be right dead in the middle. I wasn't here when they did it, but they carried MRAPs, those mine resistant armored personnel carriers, which are like 25 tons a shot. They carried 5 of those, and they had to balance that out on the airplane and strap it down and all that, and the floor had to be strong enough. So there was a lot of engineering that went into that. So that's usually oftentimes where our limiting factor is the weight of the cargo in its position. We can carry crazy stuff. I've carried 400 pregnant cows from south of Melbourne, Australia, up to Jakarta, Indonesia. I mean, who knew that happened?
I'll tell you kept the door shut for that, the flight deck door shut.
Oh my word! Yeah, that was that was an experience and a half. Oh, and that was with one of the 3-digit captains that was talking about in the past. So luckily, I was one of the senior guys on the flight, and the 2 senior FOs. We did the intelligent thing. We said we'll do the walk around. We'll check the load of cows, sort of, and we stayed away out of the cockpit because it was better outside the cockpit than it was in it. But yeah, the smell was just and it was like 37 degrees. Yeah. Normally we put our bags down on the main deck right by the door, and they get strapped in down there. When we showed up, the station personnel had a roll of industrial-sized trash bags, and we put all of our bags into the trash bags, tied them up. Then we walked everything all the way up to the main deck and left everything in the trash bags except for what we needed. We put that on the flight deck. That was an experience, but 400 pissed off cows was
I can imagine.
What's one of the most awesome things that you've carried on board? You might not be able to tell us, but what one of them things that you thought, oh man, that is so good. I can't believe we've got this on here.
Carried a double stack of Ferrari race cars and a prototype car down to somewhere in the Middle East, Bahrain, I think. That was pretty cool. I've the military stuff I've always found to be the most rewarding though. When we were in Afghanistan, I didn't mind that there was a risk to it. I didn't mind that it was going to be hot or cold or wet or whatever, because I just felt like it was a worthwhile thing I was doing to support those guys, and enjoyed that. And we do occasionally like, the fun stuff. We do charters for that other football sport, and the one that uses the hands, and we carry them around, and those are fun flights. I've done the WWE wrestlers.
Oh wow,
that was bizarre.
I can imagine.
It was about as bizarre as a TV show, and they were filming segments for their upcoming week show on the ramp at the airport when we landed in Germany. But yeah, the thing I've always liked about was the diversity of our operations. First 6 months I was here, I flew all 6 flyable continents for the 747. We can't do well, we could probably land on Antarctica, but nobody has equipment to work us there. So, that's the only limitation we have. But I was in Africa. I was all over Asia, all over Europe, all over the US, down to South America, flying 110 tons of roses up to the States and on to here, actually in the Amsterdam, that's 2 plane loads a week of, 100 plus tons of roses come up here.
Wow. You'll be doing that again soon as well this month. Or not far.
They're already doing it. I think we already started that operation last week or week before. We double the flights. Most of it going down to Quito, Ecuador, which is its own special thing, because Quito is 8,000 feet. It's pretty high up, and the approach starts at 20,000 feet. And that's radar limit where we could put our flaps out, and you pretty much are putting your flaps out at 20,000 feet to configure to get on the path. And then you're descending down, not just between mountains, you're descending down between volcanoes that tend to pop their tops. And you doing this in the weather. And the first time I did it, it was in the weather and didn't see a thing. Second time I came down there, it was bright daylight and clear as a bell. And I was like, oh my word, what do we do? Because it was scary. And you're just way below the ridge line, so the mountains are up to 17,000 feet around you, and you're dropping down through right by them. So bringing out the roses up to Miami, and then
must be costing you a fortune, Nev, to get all those roses brought over here for Mrs. Nev.
Well, at least I'm ahead of the game, but it sounds like you've not bothered. And can I remind you that Valentine's Day is on Monday, so get down to the co-op a bit sharpish.
The co-op,
the garage,
wow!
I shall look out. I shall look out for those yellow labels.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm ashamed.
John's thinking, what's he on about? Yellow labels?
Yeah, yellow tickets. Yeah, basically the cheap aisle, things that are about to die. In this case, if it's flowers.
The very good thing about the Netherlands is that the flowers are everywhere and tend to be cheaper, and not so crazy as they were in the U.S. This time of year. You could barely buy a single rose for the cost of a dozen here. So at least taking care of that part of the situation is a doable function for me. So
love it.
Do you ever fly into London Stansted here, John?
I have in the past. We used to run a regular flight in there with a Dash 8. It was painted up in the Panopena colors. Back in the day, it was a one-off paint job. So I have actually, there is somewhere on the YouTubes, there is a video of my landing there. That's the first time I ever got to do that. Yeah, it was kind of cool. I just happened to see it pop up on my feed and said, hey, wait, the airplane in the snippet was the one taxiing out when we landed. So let me go look, and then sure enough, there I was landing. So, yeah, it was a good landing. So,
love that.
Stansted's a awkward airport, the way they handle you, and you're kind of getting routed around the main London traffic, and they have a lot of restrictions and coming in, coming out. And the same as here in the Netherlands too. They have the same kind of deal with Schiphol. It's they're all about their noise or their environment stuff. And oftentimes I'll look at what their procedures are, and I'm thinking, well, you're kind of making this all worse the way you're flying this. But...
No, before Nev asks you the all-important question that we always ask our guests when we have them on, just another one. Is there an airport in the world that when you see you've got a trip there, you think, oh, no. One of those.
Shanghai.
Okay.
Shanghai. luckily my visa has expired for China right now, so, and they're not currently renewing them. So
is it just purely the approach or the airport itself or the handling or?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a yes.
Fair enough.
It is
just yes.
Yes.
Wow.
And if you ask any of my colleagues, I'd say 99% of them would probably agree with me.
Wow.
It's just it's a mess for a lot of reasons. That for some reason they think it's a state secret to tell you which arrival you're going to do, which approach you're going to do. Then there's the whole taxiing on the ground. There's the pollution. It used to be the catering. When we do catering there, the stay downtown was okay, but the hotels were always just a little weird. They looked really gorgeous. Staff was always really nice, but it was always just a little weird. And you walk around the city and it's cool, but always just a little weird. One thing I really miss about it is the market by the Science and Tech Museum, where you got to get all the knockoffs. If it was nothing else, it was just an extravagantly fun experience to walk through there. It's just quintessential Shanghai is that market.
Now, Nev, what we got to ask John then?
Well, two things. First thing is, thank you very much, John, for your fascinating contribution, and the number of people in the chat room that have been saying how much they've been enjoying listening to your experiences. And Dirk says he could listen to these stories for hours, and yeah, so could I too. But of course, we do have the final question to ask you. If you were able to fly any aircraft, whether it was military, civil, currently flying, retired, GA, anything at all, what would that aircraft be?
I have been dreading this question since Armando
warned you.
Sent me this lovely picture saying please to try and talk me into this. I'm gonna maybe cheat in some respects. I have two distinct. So one prop, one jet.
Okay.
Prop wise, it's going to be an odd one. An A1E Skyraider, because it was just a really bad bleeping airplane that could just carry. I mean, it carried more than a B-17. It was designed in World War II, flew in Korea, shot down airplanes in Korea, flew in Vietnam, shot down planes in Vietnam, bombed the snot out of anybody that got in its way. And, the A1E could carry 9 people.
Wow.
2 pilots up in the front, and then you could put like 7 people in the back and fly it around. It wasn't its primary purpose, but it could do that. Just a huge engine.
Yeah.
Huge engine.
A beast of a machine.
Yeah. Just looks cool. I mean, and this size, the older John that's flying 747s now could actually fit in that airplane and not be squished. So there's that. And then my first love of an airplane, probably, when I really thought about it, was F-14, and not because of Top Gun, because of the Final Countdown. So if you haven't seen that one, you got to pull that one out. But I got to see that movie with my aunt down in Virginia Beach, which is next to Oceana, which is a large naval air base. Most of a lot of the East Coast fighter wings are there. So we watched the movie that had F-14s in it, walked out of the mall where the movie theater was to see 2 F-14s and a perfectly welded wing going across the parking lot. And I was like hooked. It was the best airplane ever. And then Top Gun came along, and it was still cool. And, it's still cool now.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. It's
Absolutely.
Still cool now.
Yeah.
This maintenance hog, but man, I mean, planes, again, sort of like the A1, it's really a really bad piece of kit. I mean, it was actually, designed to do both air and ground. They just made it air only in the beginning out of expediency, and then sort of the fighter pilots didn't want to do ground stuff. So, but then later in its life, it became a really good close air support aircraft. So,
wow. No, I love that. It's we do have one complaint from somebody who sent us a message via WhatsApp, by the way. It says, absolutely fascinating interview. Unfortunately, my tea is now gone cold, but the wine is going down well. So, there we go.
Actually, Matt, can I just share this picture just quickly?
Yeah, go on.
Of the aircraft that John is just talking about there.
Yeah,
there we go. That is the Sky Raider.
Oh, wow.
And
that's not the family version, but that's the single seat. That's probably an A1D or maybe one A1A, so it's original one. But if you look at what's carried on there, it's got outboard. It's got looks like rockets and maybe some cannons. Large rockets, small rockets, and you got some bombs. And silver stuff's probably what would have been napalm, and it could carry more even underneath the belly as well.
Wow.
What a
But if you look, there's also a door in there too, and behind the cockpit.
Yeah.
So there were versions that were done for the Navy, for submarine warfare, and they were electronic warfare aircraft as well. That might have been their electronic warfare aircraft version right there. So,
wow.
Yes, I'm a geek. So
absolutely nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Thanks for coming on again, John. It's been great to have you on the show, and you're going to stick with us, aren't you, for to look over some of these stories that have been in the news headlines for this week.
Absolutely. So, now for some verbal commentary instead of my normal written commentary.
Also, we want you to correct us when we make a mistake, which is often.
Yes,
I'll take on Armando's role for the day.
Absolutely. Yes, please do. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Anyway, we better get into it because we're going to run out of time otherwise. So, if everybody's ready. Let's go.
Go. So, kicking off this week's first news story. This one comes to us from brickshow.com. And for those of you who are lovers of Lego, I know I am.
My goodness.
I have lots of Lego, and I also have a Lego airport in the next room, including jet aircraft as well. Right. Anyway, this one is a Boeing 747 Cockpit by Darren Jones joins Lego Ideas' first 2022 review stage. Like the name says, this is a recreation in scale of the original Jumbo Jet's pilot cockpit. Contributor Darren Jones believes this build could make it as a Lego Ideas set based on initial commentators. The setup makes good use of Lego elements from the more advanced building systems. The result is a cutaway view of the 747 cockpit featuring the instrument panel, seats for the pilot and co-pilot. The beauty is in the amount of detail that Darren has put into the instrumentation, the flight controls, and even the seats themselves. Movable pilot yokes, control sticks, levers are just some of the technical features of this 747 cockpit build. The instrument gauges and displays may not be one-on-one accurate, but they bring genuine sophistication to the setup. The seats are also movable. Darren Jones also adds a nameplate that is flanked by a male and female pilot minifigures. The creator sees some necessary alterations should the build be accepted as a Lego Ideas set, but it must first survive the gauntlet of the first 2022 review stage, which isn't over yet. So this is a design that's been put together by this chap, Darren Jones, as an idea to put into production for Lego to release. Thoughts, guys? Nev?
I like it. Yeah, like it very much. And the detail is amazing, isn't it? Especially the cockpit itself. I mean, that's
obviously as a driver of one of these, John. What are your thoughts on this?
I had to get on the bigger screen, but I see a potential for a much lower cost procedure trainer there for the with the cockpit. But I was noticing the pilots there. I think I resemble one of them.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
actually,
all Sims from now on are going to essentially become built out of Lego off the back of this. I love it.
Actually, Richard Adams and Tony S in the chat room said Richard has said, "There's Captain Nick," and then Tony S is saying that is a Lego Captain Nick.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can't disagree with that.
I tell you what, if they do release this, I might have to have it. I might have to have it.
Anyway, right.
I would definitely have to have one. So.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I didn't have my son to help me build it because there's no way I'd be able to do it.
Yeah, I know. It's a unique skill, isn't it? This whole Lego thing. It's something I was never very good at. I had Meccano. That was
you never had Lego Technical? No, technical.
No. One of my friends had it. One of my friends had Lego. But anyway, we better move on. This story comes from the independent.co.uk, and the headline is "Take the Red Eye Airbus A380 plane to be transformed into a hotel." Ooh, AvGeeks can soon experience the high life while staying grounded, as a former Airbus engineer is converting a retired A380, the world's largest passenger plane, into a hotel. Frederic Deleuze plans to open the new digs in a unique super jumbo jet parked near Toulouse Airport, with opening slated for 2024. He wants the project to be a tribute to this wonderful aircraft, which is nearly a religion for all Airbus employees, he told the Points guy. I love challenges and discovering new things continuously. Also, I always had in mind to create my own business. Having brought the aircraft, which I can only imagine how much that must have cost, for an undisclosed sum, Deleuze wants to transform the interior into 31 rooms, including 2 suites, one in the cockpit and one in the upper deck. The hotel's prices won't be sky high either. Rates are expected to be around about £92 a night, with suites costing £258. The property is being marketed to appeal to the curious, to enthusiasts, but also to tourists and professionals looking for marked originality and comfort. In-flight meals can be enjoyed in an adjacent 60-cover restaurant attached to the aircraft. This will serve up high-quality bistro cuisine and will be integrated into a building using the metaphor of a control tower, according to a press release about the project. Produce will be locally sourced as much as possible and waste kept to an absolute minimum. Now, I really love this story. More and more people are doing this, aren't they? I mean, Nev, obviously you you were involved in a project, weren't you, where somebody was sort of turning one into like some offices and things for like.
Well, yes, the 727 down in the west part of England here, yes, and there seems to be a bit of a theme here, isn't there?
Yeah.
People reusing aircraft for what should we say, on the ground activity rather than flying the thing.
Absolutely. We all know that I'm not the biggest sort of like fan of flying and stuff, but I would be fascinated to see, having been, I've only ever been on an A380 on the ground, and they are massive, aren't they? They're the most ridiculously
I'm
huge
sure
thing.
isn't there a 7-4 hotel near you, John? Somewhere across your...
Yeah, Corridon has a 7-4 they took out of service, and they trucked over to their hotel on the other side of the freeway from the airport. But in this regards, I'm really happy to see this happen, because one less flying forehead to deal with.
And on that bombshell, time to move on.
Nev, you've got the all-important story this week. This is major news.
I'm very concerned about this item because it is before the watershed, but we'll give it a go.
Oh, wow.
It's on the independent.co.uk. The headline says, airline offers private 45-minute flight for its passengers to join the Mile High Club.
Oh, what?
An airplane charter business is offering private 45-minute flights for passengers to join the Mile High Club, with the founder claiming it helps people from divorcing, the New York Times reports. For $995, Love Cloud takes couples wanting to become members of the infamous club of people to have sex on board a flying aircraft at least 5,280 feet in the air, also known as a mile high, so that they can make their fantasies a reality. The interior of the private jet is decorated with red satin sheets, sex position pillows, and a custom-made foam mattress for extra comfort,
wow,
according to the company. Couples are promised complete privacy on board the flight, which takes off from Las Vegas. How surprising. With the pilot even wearing noise-cancelling headphones inside the cockpit. Well, they do that anyway, don't they?
Right.
Once back on land, couples are presented with the Mile High Club VIP certificate cards as proof of their membership of the club. Love Cloud founder Andy Johnson,
Right.
no pun intended,
No.
told the New York Times that the business is good for people's relationships. You come with a smile on your face and you leave with a bigger smile on your face, he said. We help keep people from divorcing. I'll tell you that right now. One couple told the Times that their only complaint that it wasn't long enough. Insert witty comment here. Frelima Howard said that her husband lost track of time, and so she never got dressed faster in her life. She said that they were given the flight as a late wedding gift from a friend and enjoyed the more private experience as a member of the Mile High Club. My husband and I joined the Mile High Club before, so to be able to do it privately was great, she said. It was really nice and exclusive and private. Passengers can also opt for other romantic options, including a 1 or 3 course meal or the option to get married or renew their wedding vows in the sky. Mr. Johnson said that the Mile High Club package is by far the most popular, with some couples dressing up as pilots and flight attendants as part of the fun. He has also allowed larger groups to take the private flight for an extra $200 per person.
Right.
I offer.
Can we go to the chat room, please?
No,
can we go to the chat room?
because almost all of their comments cannot be used.
Tony S is asking if they do a 3-minute flight. He's asking for a friend.
Right. Okay. Now look.
So just tax him, really.
John is more.
I need to. So I'm assuming because I've been a bit out of the loop this week. I'm assuming that John wasn't present for the production meeting then last night. Is that correct?
You would be right with your assumption.
Because I can't see how this got through. Wow.
Thoughts, John?
Just say no,
so
John. Absolutely.
So many thoughts. I see this as a legitimate service to keep them from doing this on a passenger.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Because I have been on the receipt of the phone call from the flight attendant who was informing me of the activity going on in the back.
Right.
Of a Saab 340. Not a big plane, and I just went. Does anybody else notice? No. I'm like, just leave him alone. I don't want to know.
Having been a regular passenger on a Saab 340 many times in Sweden, John, I can tell you that the seats are not that comfortable for sitting in, let alone anything else.
I 100% agree. I mean, unfortunately, I've had this call or heard of this happening multiple occasions, so
I'm just sat here.
Yeah.
I've got all my fingers, all my toes crossed that this is the one episode that producer John doesn't listen back to. That's what I'm hoping right now, because if he does, there are going to be text messages coming back with some forwards.
Here, I'll do this for you. Moving on.
Lovely, thank you very much. Yes,
Matt. This is what sort of show this is, Matt? This is
it used to be a family show, but I'm really not sure what's going on now. It was. Anyway, I think you have the next story, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Anyway, I'm not going to say anything. Nev chose that one. Anyway, this next story, this comes to us from Aviation Online, and Rossier,
Neil Lamwood asks, is there a safety briefing first?
Oh, my word. Why can we save the chat room and put it on the show notes? The Rossier, however you want to say, the Russian airline, is to retire. This is sad news, John, so we'll bring you down now.
I'm going to turn my microphone off for the next.
Retiring the 747, Russia abandons passenger model. This is Russia's sole Boeing 747 operator, Rossier Airlines, are going to retire the model by the end of 2024. The airline's fleet now includes 9 747-400s. All these machines were flown by Transaero originally, and following the bankruptcy in 2016 were transferred to Rossier and by their owners, state-owned leasing companies. And Rossier uses the Boeing 747s for charter flights to destinations sold by tour operator Bilbo Globus. After the final retirement of the 747s and also 10 777-300 wide-body engine 300s, which will remain in service with Rossier's long-haul fleet, which mainly now operates subsidized flights from Moscow to the Far East. Rossier told Atto.ru that the process of retiring the 747s will begin in 2023 and culminate when the last 2 aircraft leave the fleet in 2024. Meanwhile, the airline is evaluating replacing 747s with long-haul narrow-body aircraft to take over charter operations. However, the final decision has to be approved by the Aeroflot Group. Rossier's fleet also includes 20 Airbus A319s, 8 A320s, and 12 Boeing 737-800s. The airline has also been designated by Aeroflot Group to operate Russian-made aircraft. The regional Superjet 100 fleet will increase from 66 to 87 this year. Its last 10 aircraft will be transferred from Aeroflot's fleet, and 11 more will be supplied by the manufacturer. Moreover, Rossier is preparing to become the launch operator for the new MC-21 this year. We've talked about that aircraft on the show before. The first aircraft is scheduled to be delivered to the airline in September this year, and 2 more in November, and 1 in December. And the Aeroflot Group signed an order for 50 of the MC-21s. So to conclude, when Rossier says goodbye to the 747, the passenger version of this aircraft will leave the Russian market, but the cargo version will remain in the fleet. Good news for John. In the fleet for the country's largest cargo air carrier, Airbridge Cargo, part of the Volga-Depna Group, which operates the 4 Boeing 747-400Fs and 13 747-8Fs. And Skygate Airlines also flies 2 Boeing 747-400Fs. So, and they're leaving there as well now, John. Sadly, as it is.
Yeah, it's definitely sad. I saw that paint job on that one with the tiger face. Wow, that's amazing. But yeah, I mean the passenger versions are not long for the world. I think the freighters are going to stay around for much longer just because of the nose loading capability. Again, it's what differentiates us from anybody else, that we can carry the really crazy long loads. But yeah, it's sad to always see the ones the Boeings leave the line, as it were. But it's going to happen.
It's like we've always said on the show, and the passenger versions may not be around forever, but I think the freight versions of the 747 will be in the skies for quite some years to come. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So, Nev, you've got the next story, a BA story for you, and good news for our listeners in Sydney.
Yes, down under. Very happy to report this on the simpleflying.com website. It says British Airways is returning to Australia with its London Heathrow, Singapore, Sydney service resuming, but this time using the 787-9. The first departure to Australia is on March the 27th, the first day of the Northern Hemisphere's aviation summer season. It'll be followed 2 days later by the first departure from down under, and the resumption comes after an almost 2-year absence and will take off 5 weeks after Australia opens its border to the fully vaccinated on February the 21st. It should come as little surprise, however, that BA will return to Sydney in March. It had stated its intention for months, as far back as last August. However, it's the first time the country's border was confirmed as opening, meaning it will be going ahead barring any changes for the worse. The previous announcements were, in fact, hopeful statements. While all three of these will use dash 9s, 787-9s, the A380 is also scheduled and bookable on QF1 from Qantas from June the 19th and QF2 from June the 20th. As always, it may change. but let's hope it doesn't this time. And on the Daily Record, BA also announces huge new flight changes as free snacks return for passengers, which is about time actually. And in an email to customers issued yesterday, BA CEO Sean Doyle confirmed that the airline will bring back offering customers complimentary water and snacks during short-haul flights. BA got rid of its free snacks on the short-haul flights going back as far as 2016, forcing passengers to pay for sandwiches. Remember those buy on board M&S services that they were doing? Well, efforts also being made to work on improving the quality of its meals and choice that are served across all of its cabins. The airline will continue to provide table service at its branded lounges, which was introduced during the pandemic, and work is also being made to replace its phone systems to ensure that customers get through to a member of its support team quicker. That's been a big complaint this last 12 months, certainly. Mr. Doyle said that the phone lines have been overwhelmed by a large number of flyers that were experiencing problems amid the complicated travel restrictions. He also told customers that the issues faced by the company during the pandemic were the worst crisis in its 102-year history. And the email said that I'm writing you to today directly in the spirit of transparency, which is the ethos we're striving to promote at British Airways in 2022 as we emerge from the worst crisis in our 102-year history. Now, what they've done there is they're trying to do more online changes for ticket changes and that kind of thing. And that's the thing that wasn't really working that well sometimes, but that has improved. And if they can get the phone service better as well, so much better.
I guess the if we could give BA an excuse, perhaps, of course, when the pandemic hit, I mean, there were two immediate obvious problems. One was people weren't allowed in call centres, for example, especially when it first hit. So you got all these people who got flights that they wanted to cancel and things like that. And although they had physical lines, they weren't able to man them for, operational reasons, essentially. And then, of course, I suppose off the back of that, it's that sort of tumble effect, isn't it? Where now the demand, because the online side of things isn't as good as perhaps it should have been at that point, we're at suddenly they needed more people than they already had on the lines. The lines were probably sufficient in a non-COVID world, if you see what I mean, in terms of access. But I mean, BA are being sort of lampooned for this, but I dare say all airlines have had a sharp intake in the amount of people who've needed to get in touch with them because of suddenly nobody could fly.
Yeah, imagine the call centre situation, just as you were saying, Matt. 1 minute you've got, 500 people in a call centre, and the next minute the facility is shut down, more or less, and people are having to work from home with no real proper, IT facility, really, because that's not how they work. So, yeah,
indeed. But, unless you're Ryanair, of course, in which case you don't operate a call centre, and it doesn't really matter anyway.
Well, there you go.
But yeah, absolutely, it's. I dare say there could be a similar story with many other airlines, I guess, is where I'm going with it.
Oh, absolutely. It's shocking. I'm pretty sure if I check my watch, it says the 2020s on there, that we don't have the ability to do 99.9% of the transactions online digitally. This airline I'm wearing a shirt from that was shut down in 2006. We had technology back then that we could rebook an entire flight with one phone call to a one desk, and within 3 minutes have an entire flight rebooked. Just tell the passengers to go scan their boarding pass at a kiosk, and they get the next flight, and then they come up to us if they want something different. And here it is now, we're sitting on phone. I had a call into American Airlines the other week, and your expected wait time was 6 hours.
Wow. Gosh.
I got a call 9 hours later.
My goodness.
The other thing I think,
and I'm an executive platinum too. And
exactly.
I'm the top level with them, and I'm getting that.
I think the other thing is, John, that I remember, back in the day when these alliances first started, One World and Star Alliance, it was going to be a seamless, transition, whether you were flying Scandinavian or British Midland or Singapore in the case of Star Alliance. And it's never been a seamless thing, I don't think, in my experience, either on both alliances. There's always been, oh, well, we can't do that because it's that kind of ticket, or that airline doesn't recognise our kind of fare for this. And I always found that very messy. I don't know what you think.
100% agree. And I do this from the perspective of having worked the ground operations side, the flying side. It's never really come through. And then the IT aspect of it, I think, is where the biggest letdown. And then each airline's going to have its different rules. But when you're joined an alliance like that, it should be be able to come up with a common set of rules that you're going to operate on, and acceptances of other tickets, and give and take in that regard, so that if I have an American ticket and it's being operated by BA, I should be able to check in on the American app, not just see it, but actually fix my seats. Well, no, and I can't do that. I have to go to British Airways site, and then 9 times out of 10, I can't even select it on the British Airways site without making a phone call. Well, I don't want to make a phone call.
Yeah.
I just want to take care of it and do it. I know how to book my own tickets. I know how to pick what seats I want.
I seem to remember from a conversation that I had with somebody who worked there for a short time, and one of the comments that they made actually was how disjointed their various IT systems were, if you see what I mean. So if somebody wanted to change their flight with BA, it wasn't a simple process. It involved essentially four different computer systems / programs to get the job done. And I mean, I'm taking the mickey out of Ryanair there with their phone call thing, but the one thing you can't take away from a lot of these low cost airlines, EasyJet, Ryanair, Jet2, all that kind of thing, is you can literally do everything on their website. You don't have to phone a human at all if you don't want to. You can literally manage your entire flight itinerary just using a web page.
I absolutely agree there. And I go back to, this is Independence Air, and we had our big thing was that we were clean, efficient, simple to process, to do, very simple ticketing, and to rebook somebody. Web was still pretty new back then, so people weren't really comfortable, but it was possible to go and book your tickets. It was possible to go make changes online. If you're at the airport, it was seconds. You could walk up to somebody and go, "Oh, I want to try this flight. Let me," and I just look and see if that flight was open. And with, I think, a total of 9 keystrokes, so 6 for the PNR for the passenger name record, and then the date confirmation, and then yes to print the boarding card, I could rebook somebody on another flight.
Yeah.
And that was all done essentially by a pilot who scripted it out. So in the background there was mad computer typing going on, but me at the keyboard, I just watched the screen scroll as fast as it could go.
The front facing element of it is slick.
And it was easy and efficient. And I can recall when I was doing the maintenance stuff, we used to have an all hands on deck policy when stuff would go wrong. And we both happened to be at the airport together. And I think our plane had actually returned to the airport for a pressurization problem. So we're doing this whole rebooking. Well, I taught my boss in something like 2 minutes how to rebook passengers. And he was happily going at it.
Yeah.
Why can we not bring technology up to that level where people can do it? Anytime I need to get stuck with weather or any kind of maintenance issues or whatever, and I try to rebook myself and it gives me the option on my little app on my phone, it's useless. It's crushed. You can't do it. And that's all the major airlines that I've dealt with in the U.S. And I wouldn't have to do with a foreign one, but
no. So going back to obviously this story here where we're talking about BA, do you think possibly, Nev, some of this issue, if you like, is almost because the airline has been around for so long? And so, it's a little bit, in some respects, if the system isn't broke, why fix it? Do you know what I mean? Is it possibly something to do with that?
There's a bit of that, but I think the overriding thing as a punter, from my point of view, the most difficult thing to work out is the price of your airline ticket.
Yeah.
And if you look at how the price is broken down, if you take a simple single sector flight, even within the same country, Heathrow to Edinburgh, for example. Just have a look at the breakdown of the flight costs now, the air passenger duty, the airport tax, this, that and the other. You start adding all that into intercontinental routes, going to the US, plus some internal flights maybe as well, and the complexity of working out how much your flight is going to cost you, let alone if you start to get into changes, down route or individual sectors. The level of complexity is very high indeed, especially, and the reason for it is, of course, different flights attract different fares, and so you're into a whole world of pain before you even start. So having said all of that, I think John's exactly right. The infrastructure must be built with this kind of situation in mind, so that people can change their flights easily and know what the cost of that is, and make a payment on their MX card to do it, for example.
And of course, I should just say here, obviously, recently, Nev, obviously, you have had to make those phone calls to BA to change flights or cancel them. And to be fair, once you've got through, the experience has always been very positive.
Oh, I've got no complaints at all. It's taken me 45 minutes probably on hold, but I have heard anecdotally some horror stories with people, as John mentioned, hanging on for hours. But as you say, people don't want to pick up the phone to do this stuff. We've got the front end interface and the technology to do all this. We need to do more of that, also to take the pressure away from the call centres.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say more succinctly, it's a lack of executive vision. They don't have a really good, clear vision of what they need to do going forward to meet the new needs of this new world we're living in, to deal with the passengers and provide good customer service. And they need to make that commitment, both in terms of their IT infrastructure, cost, but also the design of how they're doing their ticketing, their marketing, their ticketing prices are just insane. In the US, you can have a 200-seat airplane that has 250 ticket prices.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's ridiculous.
Yep,
indeed.
Couldn't agree more.
Right. So, Matt, you've got the next story, and we haven't had a good fight on the show for a while.
No, we haven't.
So,
no, indeed. Yes, let's get stuck in, shall we? Literally, themirror.co.uk is our source for this story, and the headline is Tenerife holidaymakers detained for 90 minutes on airport tarmac, sparking fury. Travellers on a flight returning from the Canary Islands were furious after being detained for 90 minutes after they arrived back in the UK. Holidaymakers on the Jet 2... Oh, dear, poor Jet. I feel really sorry for Jet 2 from Tenerife. Said airport authorities offered no explanation for why they'd been left sitting on the tarmac in transit buses airside. The trip went smoothly, with passengers disembarking as usual on Saturday evening, February the 5th, until they found themselves inexplicitly unable to leave the buses. Left in the dark as to why they'd been held up, many became frustrated at their poor treatment. One passenger even reported that police had to be called to calm down the volatile situation. They described how after 30 minutes of being stuck on the bus at East Midlands Airport, travellers were moved to a separate part of the airport where staff continued to hold them. Derbyshire Live reports. In essence, we left the aircraft around 7 p.m. And were loaded into the usual transit buses, but remained in there for about 30 minutes with no explanation as to why. We were then told that for public health reasons we were not being allowed to leave, and instead were taken to a large hangar hall at the far end of the airport. The passenger added many people were getting very irate and it became very volatile, so police were called to calm things down. Another half an hour went by and everything's just reset, so I've lost the story. One moment, caller. I'm having to scroll all the way down to the bottom again. There was no reason, so another half hour went by before the frustrated passengers were finally loaded back onto the buses and taken to passport control. Yet there was still no reason forthcoming from whether the airport authorities or the airline were as to why they'd been held. The customer said after a further 30 minutes we were loaded back onto the buses and finally allowed into passport allowed to pass through passport control. There was little information given as to why we'd been detained, but we finally left the airport almost 90 minutes after leaving the plane, and it was raining. Oh no. They added, I felt sorry for the junior staff trying to make an increasingly volatile situation the way it had been handled by the airport, and Jet2 left a lot to be desired. Now, the only thing with this story is we still don't know the reason why they were being held.
No.
Well, Nev, you thought that last night we were having the discussion about this. You thought maybe someone had pox and they didn't know who it was, and weird.
It never ceases to amaze me that, as I've mentioned before, you would think the difficult bit, wouldn't you, is doing Mach 0.8 through the air. But the difficult bit is ground handling, ops, getting people on and off the plane and getting to where they've got to go. Now, there's obviously a lot of complexity with this story, the answer of which we don't actually know yet, but I'm sure there will be an answer at some point. It's hard work and very frustrating for those folks concerned, I would imagine.
Indeed. Well,
hardest part of a flight is the first 300 feet and the last 300 feet.
Yeah, you got it.
True that. Right.
So the last story in the commercial segment this week, and it's an and finally story. We like an and finally story in this show. For those of people who love plane spotting, I know there's a few of us here that like to go and check out the aircraft, but this is a bit of a different one. So Oakland's rest home resident taken to Bournemouth for plane spotting. This is coming from the dailyecho.co.uk. And the sky was the limit for a care home resident who was granted his wish to plane spot once more. Clive Wilson has lived at Oakland's rest home in Marchwood since 2021 after moving to Hampshire with his wife Margaret from Fulham in 2002. His fascination with aviation began in his early teens, having not been outside to see planes since 2018. The home wanted to facilitate his wish as part of their Send a Smile initiative. The 82-year-old was able to see a number of passenger planes landing, and when asked if he'd had a good time visiting Bournemouth Airport, Clive said, "You could say that. It was the best," he said. The former delivery driver for United Biscuits, that's going back a few years, was so dedicated to his pastime that if there was an airport nearby upon finishing his rounds, he would drive there just to see the aircraft taking off and landing. It was his work that he met his wife of 24 years after the pair was set up on a date in the canteen by their bosses. So Mr. Wilson would even visit airports while on holiday. Taking a leaf out of my book, and even took his wife
much
to
your
visit...
wife's dismay.
I know. And even took his wife to visit local airports in Australia when they went down under. Even when walking down the street with Margaret, he would stop and just look up at the sky to watch the planes or sit in the garden with his binoculars for hours just watching them. Oakland's care home manager, Nicola Ray, said the home does its best for the residents. And she said that we're always looking for ways we could improve our residents' quality of life and allow them to live out their dreams. Our Send a Smile initiative has been incredibly popular, and since it began last year, we have enabled residents to get involved with a huge variety of activities they've always wanted to do. One time, we decorated our lounge in a space theme for a resident who'd always wanted to dream of going to space. And we all know how much Clive loved plane spotting. And when he said that he wanted to go out and look at them again, we were delighted to help him to go and do it. And what a nice thing to do.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I love this story. I really do. It's such an easy thing to do, isn't it? But
good on him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good on him,
amen to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Actually, you mentioned.
There's hope for me in a couple of years.
Actually, you mentioned plane spotting there. I don't know if eagle-eyed viewers in the I think it was Meridian area may well have seen a certain Jonathan Warner being papped by ITV News this week, and as I say, he's actually appeared, believe it or not. In fact, he sent me the picture earlier. Here you go, look. There is him. So this is ITV doing a story about I think it was a B-52 that was coming in at Fairford, and sure enough, is it Meridian at Fairford? covering? I can't remember.
Yes, it would be. Yeah,
it is Meridian. Yeah. Coming into land at Fairford there, and there he is, busy papping away. Look. Do you know? I didn't. Has he got an iPhone? Has he got an iPhone holder attached to where his flash should be on his?
Yeah, so he can film and take pictures
now
at the same time.
That's clever.
It's a good
I
idea. It's
like
a really good
that.
idea. Yeah.
I like that. Everybody needs to up their video game now. Look, they see that's award winning. I love that. What a cool shot that is, eh?
Well, look at the underside of the wings, like almost like frost.
Yeah.
It's all white.
It's a good picture.
It is.
It's amazing.
Picture. Anyway, sorry to derail the story there, but it was just like we got it. It's sort of that was a perfect place to sort of drop it in. Really, as I say, got papped by ITV
because we are now going to do the military news. Quickly,
are we? Oh, okay,
yes.
All right, yes.
So quick, press that button, Matt.
Yeah.
We're running out of time quicker than a running timey thing. This first one comes to us from thefirstnews.com and a Ukraine-Russia update. So we've got American F-15 fighter jets arriving in Poland. American F-15 combat aircraft flew into the 32nd Tactical Air Base in Tarsk, central Poland on Thursday this week to take part in NATO air policing missions in the airspace of the Baltic states. NATO countries are supporting Estonia, Lithuania, and Latvia, which lack warplanes able to patrol their airspace. The mission is currently in its 58th deployment, with Poland contributing to Orlik contingent for its 10th time. Also, this week, American F-15 fighters arrived at the Tarsk Air Base, where they'll be supporting the eastern flank within the framework of the NATO air policing mission. The Defense Ministry said on Twitter, the aircraft will stay in Poland until the end of February. And also, Baltic air policing aircraft are often used to identify Russian aircraft flying to and from Russia's Kaliningrad exclave, according to NATO. And the Russian planes often approach alliance airspace without communicating to flight control or submitting flight plans, and with their locators and identification transponders turned off. No surprise there. The mission is controlled by NATO's regional multinational air defense command in Udem, Germany. And this next story is UK Defence Journal. This one comes from American bombers arriving in Britain. So as we see there, the B-52 Stratofortress aircraft, as packed by Jonathan Warner, support equipment and personnel from the 5th Bomb Wing in Minnow Air Force Base, North Dakota, arrived at RAF Fairford this week in the UK to execute a long-planned bomber task force mission. Bomber task force missions are regularly scheduled by US European Command and US Strategic Command Joint Mission Series. So according to a statement en route to RAF Fairford, US bomber aircraft integrated with British Typhoon aircraft and Portuguese F-16s currently assigned to NATO's Icelandic air policing mission. Bomber aircraft also integrated with British Joint Terminal Attack Controllers, or JTAC, to conduct bilateral close air support training. The mission focused on enhanced readiness and interoperability for the controllers responsible for coordinating airstrikes to support ground forces. Regularly integrating with our allies, they said, improves the cooperation and operational capacity and capability and interoperability occurring since 2018. Bomber relations through Europe maintain the readiness to execute a wide variety of missions across 2 continents, sustaining peace through deterrence. Now, I know things are starting to get rather heated across in the Ukraine at the moment. And I think we're literally just waiting to see the next big story break on Sky News when something happens there.
I know, right? Yeah. I thought this was all behind us, you know. I thought everybody had grown up. Clearly not.
So, Nev, you've got the next one, and this is about Armando's favourite helicopter.
It is, yeah. It says that the Okinawa's government requests US Marine Corps to cancel training using Ospreys. The US Marine Corps stationed in Japan's southernmost prefecture of Okinawa announced on February the 7th that it will conduct training using Osprey and other military aircraft from February the 8th to the 13th, and that the prefectural government responded on the same day by requesting that the Marines, the Okinawa Defense Bureau and other authorities cancelled the unprecedented large-scale training at the Naha port facility located in an urban area. Okinawa's Governor Denny Tamaki criticised the move at a February the 7th press conference, saying that the Naha port facility is right next to the city area and also near Naha Airport, where many civilian aircraft arrive and depart. It will amplify the anxiety among Okinawans and impose further base burdens. It's totally unacceptable. The US Marine Corps announced to the media that it would conduct the training, but the prefectural government did not receive contact from the US military or the Minister of Defence's Okinawa Defense Bureau. According to the announcement, about 250 members of the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, which has got its headquarters at the US Marine Corps Camp Hansen in central Okinawa, will participate in the training to hone their skills in humanitarian assistance and evacuation of non-combatants. In addition to the Ospreys, helicopters such as the CH-53E and UH-1, as well as US Navy ships, will also participate in the training. The Marine Corps explained some weapons and military vehicles may be visible from outside of the base during the training. The Japan-US Joint Committee Agreement, known as the 515 Memo, which set the conditions for the use of US military bases when Okinawa was returned to mainland Japan in 1972, described the main purpose of the Naha port facility as port facilities and oil storage. According to the prefectural government, Okinawa Defense Bureau Director General Isao Ono told Okinawa Vice Governor Kilcharo Jahana, who requested that the training be cancelled by phone. Aircraft training is not excluded in the 515 memo, and it is difficult to ask the US side to cancel it. A difference of opinion there.
This is one of those things that I think that is very important for the military to do, and the government there seems to be missing the fact that if something bad happened there, a large typhoon, earthquake, or whatever, who do you think's most likely to provide the support to help rescue them? And it has in the past. Yeah. And it's very important for them to exercise these plans. It's probably a plan they have to utilize that port as their staging area to bring in ships, bring it out wounded. And if you don't exercise it and test it in the real world, you don't find out what the problems are, and you can't fix it. And you can't do it in the real life when there's even more variables going on.
Yep, absolutely. There's not much in the way of simulators that could deal with that situation, I would imagine. So, yeah.
No, that is true.
Matt, you've got the last one here, and this is about a helicopter that featured in a film that I rather like.
Right, okay. Yes, this is thedefencenews.com, and the headline is, for the first time, the Blackhawk helicopter. Oh, you mean Airhawk, or whatever it was.
No, Black Hawk Down.
Oh,
awesome
right.
film.
Oh, okay. All right.
Awesome film.
Yep. Anyway, Black Hawk helicopter flies without anyone on board. Ooh. A UH-60 Alpha model Black Hawk helicopter flew for the first time entirely unmanned as part of the Defence Advanced Research Projects Agency Aircrew Labour in Cockpit Automation System. Wow, that really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? We'll call it ALIAS for short. That program. So this is Sikorsky announced on the 8th of February. Lockheed Martin-owned Sikorsky and DARPA have been working on the ALIAS for roughly 6 years, but have always had a pilot in the aircraft just in case, even if the helicopter performed the flight entirely on its own. There's a switch in the helicopter called the 210 switch. Igor Chapinski, who is the director of Sikorsky Innovation, told reporters during an 8th of Feb virtual press briefing. The switch indicates how many pilots are present in the aircraft. For the first time before the flight, it was turned to 0. For 30 minutes, the alias Blackhawk flew without anybody inside over Fort Campbell, Kentucky on the 5th of February, and then again on a shorter flight on the 7th of February. The aircraft performed pre-flight checks, took off and ran through a simulated light detection and ranging system depicting the congested and complex New York City skyline. The 14,000-pound aircraft responded autonomously to the simulated skyscrapers weaving through Manhattan, according to Chekapinski. Then the aircraft landed by itself. With reduced workloads, pilots can focus on mission management instead of the mechanic. Stuart Young, who is the program manager of DARPA's Tactical Technology Office, said this unique combination of autonomy software and hardware will make flying both smarter and safer. DARPA and Sikorsky have together invested roughly $160 million in the Alias program. The plan is to wrap up the program by the end of the year, Young said. The split between the two, Young said, also was relatively even. I mean, as you say, it is a stunning aircraft. There's no two ways about that, isn't it? It's probably only second in like that you could pick out, because the old what's the one over at what's the one that we see over the Apache is another one, isn't it?
The H-64 Apache, yeah,
that really stands out. And this is another one of those, isn't it, where it's almost unmistakable in its appearance.
The Apaches definitely stand out around here, Max. They fly virtually 300 feet above the house.
There is that, yes, absolutely. I mean, if you want to put a label on it, obviously. But yeah.
Well, helicopter pilots get nosebleeds above that altitude. So.
Good point.
Yeah, they do around here, John. They do around here. Me and Matt are very lucky where we live here, because they do a lot of training around here.
You say lucky. I'm not so sure about that.
Woken up, I think.
Yeah, that's another
various
word.
Times.
Indeed.
So that is where we bring the military news to a close. But we have a bit of interesting information coming up for you right now. For those of you guys who may be able to head out to a certain part near the UK, actually, Nev, in the summertime. So, Nev, tell the listeners where we are off to in September.
Well, it's actually nearer to France than the UK, would you believe? The small island of Jersey is having its international air display, and I think also Guernsey, the other small island next door to it, will be involved as well. But Carlos and I are going to go to the Jersey International Air Display on Thursday, the 8th of September this year. We'll be taking the camera gear with us, doing interviews, the usual stuff that we do at air shows. And this is because we've got some vouchers to use up from BA,
yes,
because we couldn't go to the Malta air show. So I'm hoping this is going to be a much easier one to do. And they've had an annual air display there for over 63 years, in fact. So it's going to be a really good day out, and it's on Thursday, the 8th of September. We'll be doing, as I say, all the usual stuff there. But if anyone is around on the island on that day, it'll be a great air display, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it will be. And hopefully we'll have some listeners. We'll try and meet. We'll remind everyone the other time, but hopefully we'll be able to meet some of you lovely listeners out there in Jersey. My first time in Jersey, so that'll be quite nice indeed. But we're going to start to wrap up the show now. Just a quick note: if anyone is heading out to Duxford next Sunday, I will be over there with our listener Sturman from the chat room.
You mean this Sunday, right?
No, next Sunday. Not this Sunday coming, not tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but the following Sunday.
Right, yeah.
Me and Sturman from the chat room will be heading out to Duxford for the day. He's not been there since he was very young, so he's got lots to see there, I think. Obviously, Matt was there a few weeks back with Mr. Warner.
Yes.
So we're gonna have a good old session there at Duxford. So if anyone's around next Sunday, come and give us a look. We'll be there next Sunday. So yeah, awesome. So social media links. Nev, where can our glorious listeners find us online?
It's a good question. And what you've got to do is go to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or LinkedIn as well, if you like, and you can search for Plane Talking UK there. You can send us an email to the office of Plane Talking UK, which is podcast@planetalkinguk.com. We have a WhatsApp number, and some people have been using that extensively today. And if you could remind us of what that is, Carlos, if you wouldn't mind.
The WhatsApp number is +44 757 2249166.
Exactly right. And if you want to contact us on the YouTube channel, then you can go to youtube.com/Plane Talking UK. We're not doing a show next week because we are having a week off to prepare for the 400th show. We want to get it all our ducks in a row before that happens. So we'll not be on air next week, but the week after, on Saturday the 26th of February, and he said August there, of February, we'll be doing a live show from the Brooklands Museum in Weybridge, Surrey, which is going to be a great event. Lots of people coming along as well.
Yeah, looking forward to that immensely. So it just leaves me to say a massive thanks to John for coming on the show this evening. Thank you, John, for taking time out of your Friday evening and joining us here on the show.
My pleasure. It was very, very fun and interesting to see the behind-the-scenes side of this as well.
We often forget that people don't see what goes on behind the scenes here on the show.
I tell you, it's a lot harder when we've got talkback, I can tell you that.
Yes. But no, seriously, John, thank you for coming on. It's been great to have you on. And your insight into your world has been very interesting indeed.
It has, yes. So, thank you very much, John.
Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure anytime.
So that's it, guys and girls. Episode 399 in the can. So take care, everyone. We'll be back again on the 400th at Brooklands Museum in a few weeks' time.
400th. I can't believe that the next show is going to be the 400th. Honestly. What the heck, everyone? What the heck?
So from me here in my home studio, from Matt in the glorious PTUK Master Suite Studios, from Nev in his Buckinghamshire mansion studio, and of course from our guest John in his studio at home there. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend, and see you all soon. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.